Stanley and the bucket were so close. They'd always been there for one another. Why suddenly could the bucket not connect with this passion of Stanley's? The question caused Stanley to ruminate the whole way down the elevator. He knew that there must be a way to get through to the bucket, to communicate fully with his dear friend. Surely there was a solution, mustn't there be?
Surely, why not? What's that? Like sparks flying. No hint of regret.
Stanley and the bucket walked straight ahead through the large door that read, Mind Control Facility.
I said no. Ah, nothing from the narrator this time.
Said Stanley. I know what to do. I know how to fully express this feeling in my heart. He decided right then and there that he would hold a press conference where he would speak to the public on all matters relating to pressing the number 3 over and over. He would elaborate fully on what the number 3 meant to him and why he felt so alive when pressing it. Then the bucket would be able to see his joy through the eyes of others. It would get to see the world react to this discovery of Stanley's. And it would be through the public eye that the bucket would finally understand Stanley's work.
Okay.
For months, he advertised and marketed his press conference, building excitement around it, developing and rehearsing it, until it couldn't be refined a single measure further. When the big day arrived, Stanley was as prepared as he'd ever been for anything in his life.
Well, there's nothing to do with the number 3. This is all eyes on Stanley. This is the old material. Yeah, I mean... Alright. Well, we'll see. The stage! 33333. Release Half-Life 3.
This was it. One last chance to win the bucket over. One opportunity to share a true connection with a loved one.
Well, lots of 3s. Congratulations, Stanley. Remember where you came from. That's the same as before. 3 again. 3 again. Yeah, that's it. Alright. To the press conference.
There was no one here.
Oh.
Nobody had come to the press conference to hear Stanley speak, to listen to him talk about what it really means to press the number 3 on a keypad over and over. He was unloved, uninteresting, he was a failure, and in that moment Stanley knew that the bucket would never again take him seriously. There would be no connection, no deeper understanding. The bucket merely sat there in his arms, indifferent. And so it began that slowly, over many years, the two of them grew more and more distant. They spoke less and less, neither wishing to state the obvious, that any sense of real respect between them had eroded since that day at the press conference. There would be no more games, no more long conversations about passion and pursuit. Only a silence that consumed the space between friends. And Stanley, having for once in his life discovered the warmth and comfort of true companionship, was cast back into the unremarkable normalcy of loneliness.
Damn. Unremarkable normalcy of loneliness. Huh. Kinda. Okay. So that's the press conference ending. So we have escape, and then the mind control facility, the 2 different options there. After that, I don't actually know what else there is to do.
All of his co-workers were
Because the
gone.
collectibles...
What could it mean?
I don't
Stanley
think I
decided to
find.
go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Because the blue room, red room is not there. I
Not
can't...
everyone is so
Oh,
lucky to
do I have to do it without
but
the bucket?
Stanley is a very lucky fellow. Very lucky indeed.
I have to do it without the bucket. That's how you get the collectible. Okay. Well, let me have a look at the door, the meeting room.
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
Yeah. So, nearby a fireplace, somewhere both red and blue. So I would have to find the fireplace one, which I'm not sure. Is that in the cabin? Probably.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
Alright, so then we can skip this.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Crushed by the wind, but Stanley guessed the correct code by sheer luck. Was it that the bucket knew all along? Was the bucket guiding him? Yes, this is certainly the most logical explanation.
Alright, down we go. The thing I'm wondering is whether the escape ending leading into the virtual museum was actually original Stanley Parable stuff, or whether they did actually add things to it in the Ultra Deluxe edition.
Stanley and the bucket walked straight ahead through the large door that read, Mind Control Facility. Although this passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley and the bucket would both meet a violent death.
Ah, the bucket meets the violent death as well.
The door behind them was not shut. Stanley and the bucket still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track. At this point, Stanley and the bucket were knowingly walking forward into a very painful death for each of them.
And then it opens up into the floor. Okay, so the only difference in the dialogue there is the fact that he mentions the bucket, which would have been very strange for him having to re-record the lines to say, oh yeah, Stanley walked forward knowingly into a violent death. Stanley in the bucket walked forward knowingly into a violent death. Unless you can kind of splice the lines together, but I don't think you could because it would interrupt the flow. And I am assuming he will also comment by us coming out.
But of course, Stanley and the bucket thought better of it and realized they simply had too much to live for.
Well, is the bucket alive?
Nope. It's death for Stanley and the bucket.
Unless I decide not to. Yeah, that was a push. Alright. A violent death for the bucket, you say? Let's carry on. See, this was interesting because this, I think, led to the ending that was the first time it mentioned it being the Nintendo Switch edition, rather than, you know, the normal Stanley Parable game. Also, the fact it has to recognize the Switch version rather than the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox, whatever, and PC. So, we see the ominous red light, and we say, Geronimo! I can't see anything. There we go. Ta-da! And this is always also where we heard the female narrator.
As the machine whirred into motion and Stanley and the bucket inched closer to their demise, Stanley reflected on how meaningless the bucket's warmth and comfort had turned out to be. To be sure, it puts the mind and the soul at ease to embrace the bucket, but what use is a sense of ease when you're about to be crushed to death? This is what Stanley thought to himself, and he sort of kicked himself for wasting so much time carrying a bucket everywhere. Farewell, Stanley.
Farewell. Aha.
Farewell, Stanley, cried the narrator, as Stanley and the bucket were led helplessly into the enormous metal jaws. In a single visceral instant, the bucket's life came to an end, as it was crushed violently to death.
But not Stanley? Right. A Stanley
It was
Parable.
a shame, the death of such a magnificent bucket. It's true that all buckets are radiant in their own way, but this one stood above the rest. It was a glorious bucket to behold.
Yeah, the bucket's gone. I'm not holding the bucket anymore. The bucket welcomes you to the grand exhibit. You are standing at the precipice of knowledge. Much like a bucket itself, the human mind is frequently empty within a cavernous void. But through use of the exhibit in front of you, the mind becomes full and enriched and substantiated. Knowledge of the bucket and its history is the only true knowledge we really have. Will you take what you learn here out with you into the world? Will you accept with an open mind what may be challenging about the information in this exhibit? Will you change the lives of yourself and your loved ones as a result of this exhibit? Or will you turn a blind eye and continue to live as you were in ignorance and darkness? Remains to be seen. Depends on what's new in the exhibit. And it does look
Can
new.
you see how arrogant it was for Stanley to take a bucket like this and to claim it for his own? Can you see the hubris that blinded him? Can you see that the bucket is far more noble than Stanley will ever be in his short life?
Uh-huh. Okay. 25 buckets. A photograph of 25 buckets, the greatest number of buckets ever captured on camera. The photographer experienced catatonic shock for several weeks as a result of the euphoria from exposure to this many buckets at once. Uh-huh, I see. And yes, this museum is different, so yeah, okay. A bucket with 2 handles? This bucket is depicted as having 2 handles. Such a design has never been created in real life, having been deemed too dangerous and recklessly experimental. Every year, dozens are put to death just for attempting it. We're getting a bit of a Leonardo da Vinci, Vitruvian Man-esque vibe from it. Okay. And then we have Inferno Bucket, a replica of the Inferno Bucket, which in the medieval era was so powerfully alluring that it drove dozens of nations to war with one another for control of it. Billions died, and yet in spite of it all, the simple fact remains, no one can control a bucket. Doesn't even look that nice. This way. Cave drawing. While we know that buckets predate the existence of mankind, we do not know by how long. This cave drawing depicts early man's discovery of the practical uses of the bucket, by which time the bucket had already likely been around for several millennia. Notice in these drawings how the bucket is allowing itself to be used, having judged humanity to be worthy of its treasures. Glory be the bounty from the bucket.
No man can own a bucket, and certainly not a bucket as dazzling to behold as this one. It is man who should kneel before the bucket.
I don't see one. Ah. The Hanging Bucket. This piece symbolizes the necessary relationship between bucket and humanity. However clear our grasp of the bucket may be, there is yet more that is always out of reach. This distance inevitably is for our own good. But what if I try to reach the bucket? What if I try to reach it though? I feel like I want to explore the rest of the exhibit first, then try and reach the bucket. Because I have a feeling that might be a very final end to the exhibit if I do that. So what's this way? The stress bucket, an analogy. Worrying, negative forecasting, negative thinking, lack of reassurance. Vulnerability is the size and the strength of the bucket. Coping strategies are the holes. Stress is the level of water in the bucket. Rest and relaxation, doing something you enjoy. Rest and relaxation. The stress bucket, presented without commentary. And that's all you get. There is nothing else to do. So, yep. Reaching for the bucket is indeed the way to get out. Now, is the pit, the bucket is over, bottomless? Or is it just going to kill me? Let's find out, shall we? Oh, I can reach it. Should have looked down. Oh well.
But there is something we can do. Something we can do together, you and I, that will right this terrible wrong. Let Stanley die. Let him be crushed by the machine. Don't reset the game. Don't give him another opportunity to run off with another beautiful bucket. We can save the world's buckets from their treatment as tools and implements if only we let Stanley die together.
With the bucket.
The bucket shall take its place as ruler, as leader, as commander of a new world, a new vision.
See, the first time the narrator was telling me to switch off the game, that it was saying, do not switch off the game. But Stanley was holding the bucket. So how is that supposed to be any different? Okay. This time, I'm going to try doing blue door, red door to see if we can find that collectible. Oh, whoa. Okay, this is different.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Yeah, maybe. Do I pick up the bucket or not? Ooh. Let's take it.
It takes a lot of humility to carry a bucket so magnificent. Stanley checked his ego and then proceeded onward. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
I guess I'm going left. Because the red door, blue door thing doesn't work if I have the bucket and turn right. Yep, still need to do those. Fireplace and blue door, red door.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
Alright, so this time the goal will be to go to the mind control
Stepping into his
facility.
manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Crushed by the weight of this revelation, Stanley may have broken down into an emotional dumpster fire, if not for... But Stanley guessed the correct code by sheer luck. Was it that the bucket knew all along? Was the bucket guiding him? Yes, this is certainly the most logical explanation.
Down we go. Alright, mind control facility we come.
Stanley and the bucket walked straight ahead through the large door that read, Mind Control Facility.
What now, narrator?
The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley and the bucket both wondered to themselves.
Yeah, we gotta keep going. Still haven't found out what the mystery is with the co-workers, though.
The monitors jumped to life, and Stanley nearly dropped the bucket in shock. Everyone in the office was being videotaped, monitored like guinea pigs. The bucket had never seen anything like this, and it very nearly burst into tears as Stanley cradled it gently, reassuring it that everything would be fine.
Yeah, let's keep going. We gotta go up. Gotta keep going. Gotta keep progressing.
Was the bucket under the mind control facility's influence as well? Had the bucket been told to do things it didn't wish to do? What kinds of things does a bucket want to do or not want to do in the first place? These questions raced furiously in Stanley's feeble mind. No! He screamed into the bucket. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control. Never! He squeezed the bucket tighter. His one friend in the entire world. At this point, he could trust no one except for the bucket.
But what about you, Mr. Narrator? Can we not trust you? Are you unreliable?
But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions, happy or sad or content. Walking, eating, working, all of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he and the bucket would dismantle the controls for good. Two best friends, Stanley and the bucket, up against the world. They high-fived in a really cool way, and the bucket made a sassy comment about taking down the system.
Okay. Which... Narrator? I assume you want me to turn the system off. Let's turn it on.
But at the last second, the bucket jumped in and pressed the button to turn on the controls. Stanley gasped in horror. Had this been the bucket's plan all along? To take over the machine and claim the power for itself? How could the bucket have betrayed him like this? Stanley was prepared to throw the bucket away in disgust when suddenly an image appeared upon the enormous screen.
Oh.
Birds. Silly, silly birds. The control buttons became active again.
Ah. Okay. Eagle or swallow? I guess eagle? Parrots? Parrots aren't eagles.
Stanley flipped through one video of silly birds after another, and then it dawned on him. This wasn't a mind control facility at all. It was a facility for monitoring and surveilling silly birds all over the world. The mind controls were only a facade to disguise its true intentions. Had the bucket known this all along? Stanley marveled at the metal genius in his hands, the one who had pointed him towards this incredible discovery. Stanley and the bucket never found freedom because they spent the rest of their lives here in this place, flipping through live streams of the silliest birds imaginable. Of all the possible paths his life could have taken, this one was surely the best. And Stanley was happy.
Very happy. Silly birds. Okay, well, I guess that's an ending. Let's see if the game resets to the same layout as before. Yep, it did. Okay.
A soft wind blew outside and perhaps rain started, and if it did, it stopped shortly after. Stanley hoped that he would one day see weather,